Hey, this is Tim McGee. I'm extremely excited to be with you today. We're going to be talking about Chapter 9, which is communication. And if you want to jump to that next slide, we'll be going over the things that we're going to be talking about today, which is communication, nonverbal communication, task interdependence, barriers to communication, communication skills, communication media, and organizational communication. Go ahead and jump to that third slide, if you will. We're going to be talking about the communication process, which is the process of transmitting information from one person to another person to create a shared feeling and understanding. And what happens is you have the message sender, he encodes the message, and all along there's noise going on. And the receiver decodes that message. Again, that noise is going on. Noise or sounds in the environment, a phone ringing, you may have a headache, you may be hungry, you may be thinking about something else. That's all noise. And if the communication process works correctly, there is feedback that goes back to the messenger again, and there's engagement that goes on again. That noise just keeps popping up. And that's what you have to conflict to get that message across. So we'll jump to that next slide. We'll be talking a little bit about nonverbal communication. Red lights, smiles, emoticons. You'll see the ones I have listed on my PowerPoint slide. Those all convey a different message, but fire alarms, red lights, those are all nonverbal communication, but they speak loud and clear. People understand what they mean. There's no verbal language going on, but the meaning is clear. You also have body language. You'll see that I have some examples in my slide here. It's so essential in communication. Is the person making eye contact? Is he distracted on his phone? Does he have it? Is he even looking at me at all? Those are all messages that are conveying a message. If you want to jump to that next slide, we'll continue some more nonverbal communication and talk about verbal intonation. The emphasis on verbal intonation is spoken words or phrases. It's not what you say, but it's how you say it. Just the phrase, "Can we talk?" can mean different. It can mean a whole different meaning if I say, "Hey, can we talk?" Because then I'm happy, and the message is conveyed just through that. Intonation is important. We also have another good example that the book gives over here. Just the word, the change in the word of the sentence meaning, depending on which word that you emphasize. Aiden earned a promotion. If you just emphasize a different word in that sentence, it can mean four different things. So verbal intonation is important when we're talking. It depends on what we're emphasizing. If you go to that next slide, we're talking about one-way and two-way communication. One-way communication obviously is one person sending the information, and that's it. There's not a chance for feedback. There's not a chance for any kind of other communication to happen. Two-way communication, again, it's when one person sends the message and then there's engagement, there's feedback. That's two-way communication in the process. If we'll jump to the next slide, we'll be talking about task interdependence and how that works in an organization. Uh, if we look at pooled interdependence in an organization, you'll see that in here the individuals work alone and then they come back independently and they combine their information, they share that, and decisions are made or some kind of group output is made. You also have sequential interdependence, and this requires tasks to be formed in a certain order, sort of like an assembly line. In this example, Dante can't do what he needs to do until Lisa gets the information to him. And Tyler, again, it depends on both of those in the sequential chain. You also have reciprocal interdependence. This requires constant communication and task adjustment. There's a high potential for conflict in this type of interdependence. This could be things such as a cross-functional research and development team, communication going back and forth, uh, and decisions being made, and it requires a high level and almost perfect communication. If you'll jump to that next slide, we'll be talking about different barriers to effective communication. We have several of them, so stay with me. One is selective perception. This is when people selectively interpret what is seen or heard depending on their own interests, their own expectations, their own experiences or attitudes. Regardless of how things really are, it's their own perception of that. This is when managers or workers interpret information that's handed down in different ways depending on their background, what they believe in. Also, people do not hear what they do not want to hear. Instead, they put it through their selective perception and hear it in a way they want to already believe that it's that way. You also have misconception. Misconception is when the receiver decodes a message in a different way than the sender intended. And body language, verbal intonation, poor listening skills, those are all things that can contribute to misconception. You also have filtering that goes on. And this is when you receive less than the full amount of information due to withholding, ignoring, distorting information. This happens a lot, in my opinion, in news or politics. But also, maybe you want to tell a manager that's higher than you, hey, things are going great around here. And they might be going good, but there might be a lot of bad things happening. But you don't tell him that. You filter that information out, and you just give them the message that you want them to hear. You also have information overload. This occurs when the receiver has too much information. He or she cannot process that information. Example: if you go into work, you got a stack of 500 emails right there. You're going to filter through some of those emails. It's information overload. If you start a master's class and you want to take 5 classes at once, that's information overload. You know what I'm talking about. You filter through some of that stuff. Uh, you also have organizational barriers. Organizational barriers are the hierarchy of the organization. You have levels, you have specializations where communication doesn't happen, and you can't just go to the top. Sometimes that communication is real difficult. Some companies encourage open communication where no matter who you are, you can speak to any level. But there are some challenges of that, and a lot of companies want to limit that. You also have cultural barriers. Words and gestures mean totally different things in different cultures. If I give you a thumbs up, that means okay, it means a good job in most cultures. It may mean hitchhiking too, see, it can mean something else. But if you go to places like Nigeria or Afghanistan or Iran, give a thumbs up, that's the same thing in America as flipping somebody off with a middle finger. So you got to be careful where you go, what you say, how you say it. Those are cultural barriers. You also have noise. Noise is anything that blocks, distorts, or changes in any way the information that the sender intends to communicate. Sounds, machinery, font that's too small and you can't read it. If the receiver has a headache, those are all things that are noise that take away from the message that's being sent. Part of that noise that the book gives talks about loss of transmission from the internet connection going down to a video conference link being broken, things like that. Maybe people are checking their phones, their emails on their phones during a meeting. This is all contributing to the noise. You also have ambiguity of meaning. This is when the receiver is not quite sure of what the sender meant. If someone says, hey, we need to do this, does that mean now? Does that mean later? What does that mean to you? And I say, hey, we need to get this done. You also have your jargon, technical language. I know this is big in the military. If I told you that I said, hey, a butter bar and a sapper or Oscar Mike to the LZ to board the helo, it's not going to translate in most cultures. But in the military, people know exactly what I'm saying. So you have to be careful on your jargon and what that means. You also have semantics. I will be there soon. What does soon mean? To me means, hey, I'm going to be there right away. It's going to be quick. Some people it could be a few hours or even a few days to some people is soon. Hey, we'll get it done soon. What does that mean to you? If you want to jump to that next slide, we'll be talking about communication skills, listening skills, writing skills, presentation skills, meeting skills. Listening skills are so important in communication. Listening is not hearing. Hearing is passive, listening is active. You got to tune out the noise. This involves giving nonverbal clues and evidence to show that you're listening. Your body language, your eye contact. My wife says this all the time. Tim, are you listening to me? I say yes, but I'm really watching TV, watching a sports game. I may be thinking about something else. So you got to be active in your listening skills. This is very important as a manager or any worker. Also, your writing skills. This is not just about grammar and punctuation, but business writing needs to be professional, needs to be direct, and needs to be persuasive. And write to express what you're saying, not to impress. That's not easy for some people. Mark Twain once vowed never to write the word metropolis when he got paid the same to write the word city. So get to the point, write for your audience, and avoid passive language in that. Presentation skills. This is important, especially for managers, to have effective presentation skills. Nervousness is kind of natural. People are going to be nervous. It's okay if you contain it. Practice will help. You can channel that nervous energy to an enthusiastic delivery using gestures. You need to speak up. You need to speak clearly. And you also need to move freely around and not pace, but just move freely. Always end with a bang. Boom, mic drop. No, I'm kidding. Not everything ends with a mic drop or you can walk away, but let the last things that you say be important, be effective, make them remember that. If you'll jump to the next slide, we'll talk about communication media. Communication media, one, we have the internet, and the internet has fundamentally changed how people communicate. When I was in undergraduate school, I didn't have the internet. I had the Dewey Decimal System. I had the library. I had communication snail mail. That's all I had. Uh, but through the internet and through the advance of technology, face-to-face communication should never be replaced. It's so important. Emails can be misconstrued. Emails can be even misused. Some companies inform of a big job cut via email. That's just not a good practice. Video conferencing is part of that internet process. It's a tool to use when face-to-face is not possible. You can talk to people in other states, other countries, around the world through the internet technology. Telework is conducted in a location other than your central office. You also have telecommuting, which is bigger today than it ever has been. It requires no office. People work out of hotels in their home. Companies are not paying for that, but through the internet process, they can work and do their communication. You also have collaboration software. I know Microsoft SharePoint is big in this. It allows team members to share information electronically. They do this simultaneously through a network of interconnected computers. I know the industry I'm in, which is petroleum industry, we have uh, SharePoint sites all over for people to share information and work simultaneously. You also have the intranet. That's a centralized information clearinghouse. It's a website stored on a computer. It's connected to other company computers, and people could communicate that way. You also have portals that can be set up for constant viewing from managers or other people that need to see it. So you have the intranet. You also have oral communication. Communication in person is important in building credibility and trust. It's important. FaceTime, not just the application on the Apple phone, but FaceTime is important. It's critical. Oral communication. And you also have media richness. This is classified in terms of the richness or the media's ability to carry nonverbal cues, provide rapid feedback, convey personality traits, and support the use of natural language. And that's broken down into four categories. Interactivity is one of those. It's availability of feedback. Can I do feedback? Face to face is going to be high in interactivity. Video conferencing, high. Instant messaging, yes, I got feedback right away. Telephone, moderate. Personal correspondence, written letters, that's going to be low. You also have the ability to transmit cues or voice inflection, pictures. Again, face to face, it's going to be high on all of these. Teleconferencing, all of them, because that one-on-one contact is so important. Uh, Personal written correspondence is going to be low. You also have language variety, which is conveying a broad set of concepts or ideas in that. If you want to start an advertising campaign, you're probably not going to do it via email. You're going to want that face-to-face interaction. It's important. And then you also have personal focus, which is the degree to which it allows expressions and emotion. Again, face-to-face, you can see it, you can feel it. Texting, it's not going to happen very well. Instant messaging, it's not going to be a good personal focus because you can't see that very well. If you want to go to the next slide, we're going to be talking about organizational communication or exchange of information between groups in the organization. And with that, you have downward communication, which is obvious. It's from higher levels and down to lower levels in the organization. What are they saying to you? That's that communication process. You also have upward communication, which is from lower level employees communicating with higher levels. And if you encourage upward communication, it can help managers understand if subordinates are understanding goals, but it can also be challenging. Some companies love that, some companies limit that totally. You also have horizontal communication, which is communication on the exact same organizational level between employees. This is a very common practice. And you have diagonal communication. This one gets tricky. This is across departments and levels. This is when a lower level employee may contact a manager in a totally different department or someone higher up. And this can be really inappropriate depending on the circumstance, and we should avoid it if it's not essential. You also have formal and informal communication. Formal communication is official communication. It's usually interpreted very accurately. Informal communication is not official. This includes gossip, answering other employees' questions when they haven't. And these, again, encompass all four of those: upward, downward, horizontal, and diagonal communication. You have social networking, which is huge. And this is a set of relationships among people connected through friendship, family, work, or other ties. This is They're formed to exchange information either for work or outside of work, just for fun. These can be good or bad. Information sent on social networks are there for the world to see. Some people uh, don't do that very well and should take very caution before putting out there what they can. They can also put sensitive information about the company. So social network can be tricky. Again, it encompasses upward, downward, horizontal, or diagonal communication. If you go to the last slide, you're going to see our discussion questions, which is: what type of communication do you prefer to use on a regular basis? Are you a face-to-face person? Do you like phone calls, email, texting? How do you like to communicate? Can you discuss the noise-related issues that interfere with this type of communication? There's going to be noise going on all the time, and what kind of nonverbal communication can affect this type of communication? Appreciate you being with me today. I'm looking forward to some of your answers and getting to know you. God bless you. You have a great day.